Conversation that we began just before the break. We're in Fourways, no, not Fourways, we're in Midrand. Fourways last week, Gallagher Estate, which is just north of Johannesburg. And this is the latest in the series of New Age business briefings. And we're talking broad-based black economic empowerment 10 years on after the Triple BEE Act was enacted. And there's a newer version that's coming out. And we want to know what your concerns are, what your thoughts are. And I'm going to be introducing you to the panel just now. But first of all, let's check in with Ayanda Ali-Payne, who you've been seeing on Morning Live recently. She joins us today. Ayanda, very good morning to you.
And hello again at home. I tell you, if you are about to head out, make sure you follow us on Twitter. This conversation is sure to be riveting. We just heard from Trade and Industry Minister there, Rob Davies, just outlining some key issues in this particular discussion that's got to do with broad-based black economic empowerment. He touched on the fact that stringent measures will be put in place to deal with the issue of fronting or window dressing as fraud, actually, is what he called it. Legislation will be put in place to deal with that, and also a special body that you can report whatever concerns or issues you have with regards to fronting. So a lot of development going on in this particular sector. Also some legislation underway to amend the bill as well. All of that and more you're going to get in-depth details about during the show. We also heard the pertinent question that was asked today, Peter, and that is, where are the black industrialists? They are there, but the number is very few. So the issue of transformation also in the spotlight. Do stay with us.
Ayanda, thank you very much indeed. And Ayanda's on the floor here, so she's going to be chatting to some of the people that are sitting here at this venue, having quick words with them. So all of that's still to come. But first, let's meet the panel. You've already met Minister of Trade and Industry, Rob Davies. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome once again. Next to you is one of the members of the Presidential Triple BEE Advisory Council, Sandile Zungu. Thank you very much indeed. Always good to have you. Next to you, someone who's familiar to us at the SABC, but she wears many hats. But the hat you're wearing today is also as a council member on the Presidential Triple BEE Advisory Council. Ellen Shabalala, thank you very much for joining us and welcome. And an independent analyst, Kio Advisory Services, Duma Kobule. Thank you very much indeed as well for joining us. I know you've been writing about this for many years, so your thoughts are very welcome. So to all of you, thanks for joining us. Minister, you spoke a great deal before about what you're going to do. Perhaps just as an opening thought, the fact that we're in sort of the third phase of legislation and statutory instruments, does this suggest that people are not getting the spirit of BEE and that they are working more with the law itself and finding ways around it?
Well, I mentioned that we will be presenting, or will be presented at the summit, a piece of research. And actually that piece of research is surprisingly positive. I think we need to interrogate it, but it is actually telling us that there is an improved performance across the board ahead of the legislative changes. Improved performance broadly across the scorecard ahead of the legislative changes. We've been speaking about this, and I think that nobody can gainsay the direction we're trying to move in. That in fact what should be happening is that people who are empowered should be empowered to become productive persons in whatever level of empowerment that is taking place. If they are in a big company, and they are supposed to be empowerment partners, they should be empowered to play leadership roles in that company. If they are suppliers, there should be a symbiotic relationship between big and small companies. That is the direction that many Asian industrializing countries have followed, and that's the direction which many significant economists are recommending to Africa. And I think that both of those are key elements, and both of those are provided for. Nobody is gainsaying the broad direction. People have got quibbles about the time frames and the level of ambition, which I said we are attending to some degree. We are listening to some of that in the final versions of the scorecards that will come out a week from tomorrow. But I think that the piece of research is telling us that there has been an improved performance in the kind of directions that we want to see. So let's see how people
Plays
react to
forward.
that piece of research.
Okay, Sandile Zungu, you are a successful businessman, and the question that was raised right at the end of Minister's speech is, how do we duplicate people like you? How do we get more black industrialists?
Well, it's a very complex issue. The impediments that since time immemorial have been associated with the failure of black people entering the mainstream economy in droves continue. There have been improvements here and there, absolutely. One of the vexing issues is how do you improve access to capital? Because most of the black people who aspire to be big will complain about lack of access to expansion capital, even acquisitive capital. How do you leverage on the state buying power to deepen black participation in the economy? The question such as was cited earlier by the chairman of Transnet, how do you ensure that the PPPFA is aligned with the cause of good practice? Those are some of the critical issues. And how do you ensure that you mentor the aspiring black industrialists? Because they need to be coached, they need to be mentored, they need to have their hands held and trusted by even large corporations, because they need to enter the supply chains of these corporations. These are some of the critical aspects that will ensure that this vision of creating black industrialists is realized in our lifetime. And it is possible. I think the government is willing. Our experience is that corporate South Africa is willing. It is caught up in its own historical wasps. But by and large, I think there's a positive development, a positive mood in corporate South Africa to ensure that this economic imperative called transformation is realized.
Mr. Shabalala, I know that over time you've worked a lot with SMMEs and medium-sized businesses, and I guess this is the area actually where most of the jobs are going to be created. So it's a very, very important sector, and if we're going to grow the economy, et cetera, this is a really important area. Are you satisfied that these new codes, this new amendment is going to be enough to I suppose, give energy to this particular sector?
Thank you, Peter. I have been part of the process, and I'm very delighted that we have arrived at this level. But I do believe that it's not only in the onus of the Council and the DTI to actually roll out these processes. As Minister said, what is profound about changing the regulatory framework is that we can actually monitor, and we don't have fallbacks of legal processes coming back again to become a serious virus in the rollout of the BBBE. But I have to just echo the sentiment of the industrialization challenges that it has been a psychological challenge as well for Africans to believe that we can do it. It requires bold leadership from the very same Africans who sit in various boards, who run big conglomerates, to say, if a crane has been done in Europe, it obviously has been done by an individual who had a thought, who got it populated into a good idea, and finally it created a product that can sell throughout the world. So it really requires a serious effort by the leaders, especially black leaders.
Okay. Duma, you've been watching this story unfold for many years now, and I'm just wondering, as an observer, and you also advise, what are your thoughts on the journey that we've been through now and where we are now, getting into the third phase? Are you optimistic and hopeful that we're finally getting it right?
Peter, I think one of the things that I'd like to say is that for me, the major disappointment is that it has taken us so long to get to the phase where we are now. It has been 10 years since the codes were, the law was first published, and I think one of the major reasons for that, there wasn't a robust system of monitoring, reporting, and review of the codes of good practice. Many of the things that you will see later on, many of us who are practitioners have known about them for a long time. And I think the problem was that From the time you set up the legislation, from day one, you should have a system to monitor on an ongoing basis to pick up what are the problems on the ground. And I think that has been lacking. And I don't think the solution is to give out tenders to people, universities, or whatever. I think government itself cannot run away from the responsibility to monitor on an ongoing basis and set up the capacity within government to monitor BE. Now, in terms of the research that is coming out today, and the minister said it shows a positive figure, it is positive. I would say yes, of course it's positive, but we must interrogate the reasons that it's positive. I argue that the reason for that is that this BE is in a credibility crisis right now. And the reason for the credibility crisis is that it had become an exam that is too easy to pass for many companies. I work in too many companies in South Africa today that have a level 3 certificate, but you cannot see a black person in the canteen. And why is that the situation? There are two reasons for that. The first reason for that is that there are loopholes within the codes that allowed companies to game the system. I'll talk about the whole issue of enterprise development. Enterprise development has the potential to be one of the most transformative elements of BE. However, across the economy...
You know what I'm going to do? Unfortunately, I have to take a quick commercial break, and as soon as we come back, I'm going to let you finish your point, because you're making some very good points there, and I can see Minister and Sendile making notes, so they'll get some reaction for that. But let's take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this.